Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the podcast on the Sicha. I'm joined again here with my two friends, Rabbi Yisroel Wilhelm in Boulder, Colorado, and Rabbi Moshe Gourarie in Toms River, New Jersey. Tonight, we are bringing about the Sicha. We're talking about the Sicha from Chelek Chav Zayin, the Sicha of Emor Aleph. The topic for tonight is, just going to say it the way it is, I guess, dealing with annoying people, a perspective on, conflict, on people who are, at least the way you see them, have behaviors that are unwanted, and how we could reframe our perspective, which ultimately is beneficial for everybody. What's the Rebbe's message for those relationships? To get us started, Moshe, let's get the ball rolling.
Okay, so the Rebbe begins the Sicha focusing on the name of the parsha, Emor, which Emor means to speak. And the Rebbe says there must be a lesson, and the question becomes immediately, what kind of speech is the Torah encouraging, especially since we know that in many cases, too much speaking is not encouraged. And ultimately, and I think we should talk about this instead of just jumping straight in, but ultimately the Rebbe teaches us that Emor, the kind of speech that is encouraged, is speaking positively about another person, because of the power of speech. That it, when you speak positively about someone, you're generating positive energy for that person and about that person, and ultimately you're reframing and rebuilding that person with your speech. I'm purposely being short because I think there's so much within the Sicha that we can even talk about some of the details of the Sicha. But this is the general gist of the Sicha. The takeaway is the power of speech and how we can help someone or deal with someone in the way you previously framed it, Shmuli, how to deal with someone, and the way we look at that person and the way we speak about that person is going to play a major role in that process. So that's my short little intro. I'm going to throw it straight at Yisroel here. Give us a thought.
I'll start by saying what you said earlier, and that is some sichas that we are lucky enough to see the Rebbe's incredible Abbas Yisrael and just incredible ability to look at the people who get in our way or whatever the negative is, and to absolutely turn it on its head and to shift us, or at least attempt to shift us on this very difficult conversation sometimes, and to really push us to see people in a positive light. And hopefully those who are listening, the three of us will be able to inspire ourselves and hopefully a few more people to at least be part of that just tremendous look of the Rebbe. So the Rebbe just questions the Rambam. The Rambam says that in order to answer the question you brought out, that you discuss, is that a Talmud Chacham is, to quote it, is Mesaper b'shvach Chaveiro b'lo b'gnusei klal, always speaks positively. And clearly the Rebbe says it's not just, the Rambam already mentioned about the so it's something unique. What are we talking about over here? And what we conclude is that we're talking about someone who there is reason not to talk positively about them. So it's not just, in other words, a situation where someone did something wrong, where someone hurt you, or someone hurt somebody else, or kind of person, whatever it is, and there's reason not to talk. And the Talmud Chacham is expected to speak positively, and the Rebbe gives various different tips on how, based on the Rambam, and how a person can go about it. I'm starting with Dalmud Kaf Schus. So Shmuli.
I think let's just take a step back, just to understand, who we're talking about and what's going on over here, just to give context. And I think it's something that we could all relate to, certainly here, and I'm sure all our listeners, everybody listening, could relate to and think about circumstances that they could think in their life in some form or another that could relate to this. And here, basically, you're talking about somebody who is bignusa. In other words, like Yisrael said, like there's reason, at least in your mind, to speak negatively about that person, which means that their behaviors to you, to your spouse, to your family, whatever it is that may be, they really are annoying to you. They're divisive. They're toxic. They're triggering. They're bothersome. And the common human behavior when you're encountering that, I think we all it resonates with all of us, is that, it's terribly disturbing. And of course, how to deal with them is one thing, but then what about, when you're talking to your friend about the situations that you're going through, you're talking to your spouse, you're talking to whoever it may be about that circumstance, about what this person did and their behaviors and how unacceptable it is and how ridiculous it is, which is to be understood because their behavior is that way. You're not just making it up. You're not pretending something. And then you're left with a torn relationship. You're left with a ruptured relationship, or you distance yourself from them. And I don't think we're talking about we're not talking about whitewashing or pretending as if that behavior is not valid and as if that behavior is not true. It is true. And the things that they're doing are certainly disruptive and inappropriate. And the question is, okay, so what do we do now? What is the Rebbe's advice to me in this circumstance? What does Chassidus say? And how could I, often a person in that situation, I find it's disturbing for everybody. It's disturbing even to feel that you're in a situation that you're judging a person that way. And no one wants to feel that way. No one wants to be negative, but this whole situation brings out the negative in everybody. So what do we do?
I think in a sense, the Rebbe is, by the time you get through the Sicha, the Rebbe is creating an extremely lofty goal for all of us. On the one hand, it seems so practical, to be positive, to look positive. But really, if it's a person that is an easier person to work with, then the challenge isn't such a challenge to begin with. But someone who is really needs the dan lekav schus, as Yisrael said, someone who really needs to be judged favorably, whether it's the examples you gave, Shmuli, where it's within your own personal life, or you meet someone on the street that you could be mekana with them, you could help them, or you're a teacher or a parent, there's someone that you're able to help, and they seem so far from from you being able to help them. And the Rebbe gives, on the one hand, extremely practical advice. On the other hand, the Rebbe, to me, it seems a little bit like a very lofty goal. We have to shift our perspective, first and foremost. Step number one, we have to shift our perspective of that person. As long as we refer to them as annoying, even if it's true that they're annoying, but that's the sum total of our description of that person, then we can't move forward. The first thing we have to do is shift our perspective of that person. Maybe there's something I don't know about that person. Last week, we spoke about compartmentalizing. Imagine if we, rather than see the entire person as annoying, we said, yes, certain things that he does is annoying, but at the same time, there are other things that he does that are that are incredible. Maybe he doesn't help me at this time, but as he does for other people or other parts of his life, there are certain beautiful things about this person. And I think I mixed two things at once, and maybe you guys want to break those two things apart. But the point I was trying to make is I think that, especially as the Rebbe is coming from the Chacham's perspective, the Chacham has more of a responsibility than the Kol Adam, than the regular Yid, and he has to look differently at the situation in order to be able to get to the next steps. So
I just want to add one thing in here, and then so I'm going to flip it over to you. But just one thing that the Rebbe mentions here, and the difference between, we talk about an Adam, a person, and how they deal with l'saper b'shvachei, to speak over the praise of another person, versus a Chacham. And one of the differentiations that the Rebbe mentions here is that the regular person, his focus is on kavod chaverei. Okay, so like you said, dan lekav schus, and the kavod of his friend, and speaking nicely. But about a Talmud Chacham, which is obviously, you talk about a loftier level and an aspiring to a higher level, it's not just about the obligation to say nice about your friend, which we'll talk about soon, but it's also like the Rebbe's words. The Rebbe says, "No, chelek fun zayin avoda," the Talmud Chacham's avoda. In other words, I think there's a major focus here on how do we see it, because how we see it, which then will result in how we speak, it has to do with our avoda. It's a perspective within us, which changes everything. Our perspective creates a reality. Our perspective creates the words that we speak. The words that we speak create realities. Sorry, Yisroel.
No, I think that in Ois Beis, Rebbe speaks very harshly about Lashon Hara. So we should understand what we're not supposed to do. And it's very clear, and that's not unique to the Rebbe. That's something that we all grow up with in the whole Olam HaTorah about. That's what's not. Then in Ois Hey, what you're talking about, the Rebbe speaks about a regular person is doing the right thing, right? Right thing means you're supposed to you're supposed to tell a person off. In other words, you are doing the right thing by pointing out what they're doing. Of course, you're doing it Torah. You're 100%. You check the boxes, and the Talmud Chacham also has to do that. But there's one extra level that's being pushed over here, like you said, and in the Rebbe's words, the etzem sipur b'shvach havera is medala zayin shvach. At the same time, while you're pointing out to the person that they're, whatever they're wrong with, you are looking for something positive to say about them, not even to them, just about them, in your mind or in words. And by just doing that alone, you're going to reveal what is good for them. I know we're talking about extreme situations, annoying people, but all of us as parents, we talk about our kids with our spouses behind their backs. We talk, sometimes people talk about their spouses behind, whatever it is, just not even big drama, just very simple, positive things, that we're trying to care about. And while we're doing that, we have an opportunity to just talk positive, to speak about the positive. And I want Moshe to talk about this, how you can, just in a very, without getting too complicated, on a very basic level, how do you have the ability to just bring positivity into a casual conversation?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I was saying, like when you said you want me to speak about it, but they say a story, a joke. I don't know if it's which one it is, but a woman came to the Rav, and she said, "What should I do? My son was caught stealing." And sort of she commented as she was, the Rav was mulling over his words. She sort of commented, "I always told him he's going to grow up to be a ganav. I warned him he's going to end up being a ganav." So the Rav said, in that case, he lived up to your expectations. In other words, the mother out of it's more of a vart than an actual story. But we say to the kids, sometimes we say these things, to a person. You're, if you don't do this, you're going to end up being this, or you're such a this, whatever. If I might add, maybe to go controversial, we grew up. Sometimes Fabrengens had a lot of negative Siddish, Yiddish, but people called each other names. And maybe in the old world there was a form of friendship where if you called someone a name, somehow beneath the surface there was some friendship there. But and I'll leave it to them in the generation before us. But today, when you call someone a name, even at a Farbrengen, even you're creating negative energy. And the first thing we have to do, and the first thing we have to think positive, but in this conversation is we're sitting together, we're having a Farbrengen. Instead of telling someone all the things they did wrong, talk about. I heard that you're learning. You have a chavrus and kutasichas. You're learning with someone. It's incredible that you're able to do 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes a week, whatever you're learning. He's barely learning 15 minutes, but you're creating an environment where we're focusing on the positive, even if the person is someone you maybe not be so comfortable about. You said a nice comment to them. It's built to you that over time it's going to change the way the person sees you, the way the person sees on the Kutasichas, the way the person sees themselves. And this is even before we get to what it says in Chassidus about Dibur is Gilui. But I don't want to overdo my I don't want to talk too much. But I do think same thing with our own kids. Kid is catching. A kid is annoying you. It's been a long day. Say something nice about them. I really like the way you helped with your younger sibling. I really like the way you dealt with this situation today. It was 3 hours ago, but all of a sudden you're saying something good about the person. The person is going to lean in to what you just said, and the mood can change, the atmosphere can change. And I didn't even go to the ruchnias yet. Just saying the misaper b'sheva chavere, that even when there is a gnus, to be able to see positivity here, to find positive words, already changes the entire situation to the point that the person could change, and the gnus will go away. Again, if it's a terribly annoying person, I don't know what's going to happen in one conversation. And if a person, I do believe that sometimes there are toxic situations that chayach hakoidman. Now you don't have to fix every single person in the world, but I did want to mention that.
There's a saying, "Kill him with kindness," and and the concept is that when someone is feeding you negativity, sometimes taking that approach, and the kill 'em with kindness is not the right expression for this, but the kindness approach within a negative situation really reframes the whole situation. It reframes, what's going on. And I think it reframes our perspective. Just to bring this home a little bit, we're talking about, really for now, I mean, there's two elements. There's our perspective, and then how it's impacting the person that we're talking about. So obviously you mentioned children. So of course, if you're speaking to a child, or if you're speaking to a student who's being rambunctious or whatever it may be. So your reframing of the situation is actually creating the situation, and you create new potentials within the student or within your child. But there's also something, I think, a little deeper here, that it actually changes you. And I just give an interesting example. I was speaking to somebody who, it's nice when kids call home, especially if they're living away, call home before Shabbos, say hello, good Shabbos to their mother, say good Shabbos to their father, call the bubby and Zaidi, say good Shabbos to the bubby, good Shabbos to Zaidi. But some kids don't do that. They get busy. Older kids, they're away in yeshiva, they're wherever they are. And there's just an interesting anecdote where there's a bubby that calls her grandchild, and before Shabbos, who the grandchild forgot to call them, obviously, or wasn't important enough to call them. And after the conversation, everything's done, the bubby says to the child, "Thank you for calling." Right? So what is she doing? So first is, you could say she's projecting out a thank you for calling on the kid who forgot to call. But I think it's a step further. I think that she wants to believe that the kid called, and she's actually saying something which creating a positive reality, which may even be a little bit not true, but that's the world that she wants to live in.
You just have to say something. I love the way you take some passive aggressive bubby shtick, and you turned it around and you made it positive.
It's creating her reality for her in the world that she wants to live in.
Right.
I remember when I was in camp, there was you guys remember when I was where I was in summer camp for a few years. I was and the third year we were there was this one kid. We said, we threatened, we're not coming back. Smart kid, Bachrim, we're not coming back if they take this kid, because he was mamish. Everything we did, it was a disaster. And but we gave him to the new counselor, the block, because we weren't interested in having him. And it was a disaster. It was the same disaster year number 3. And this counselor, it's Thursday night, made an announcement. I'm going to try something new tomorrow. And the next day, he told this kid, "You almost won best camper of the week this week. You were this close to winning." And it was a transformative, few words. And not only did he become the leader and the best guy, he was push it like he was bad. He would fight physically, became the coolest kid, and he went on to become later. He went back to school, became president of his class. Like whatever. It changed his whole life. Just someone say, I'm trying something new, something positive. And that's really what the Rebbe wants from us. And obviously, it's always a cute story with a camper and camp, because it's always like the classic, feel-good story. But in reality, is we take the situation, the Rebbe wants us to live a little bit higher and take a situation that's difficult and complicated and not look at it from our regular lens. And that's in Ois Hey, where the Rebbe says how just like when you speak lashon hara bad about someone, it affects them, so they become bad. So too, when you speak positive about someone behind their back, it will, even behind the back, it will affect them, and they will become. You know what I mean? You'll bring out what they're the goodness. So you want someone to change, be the change. You know what I mean? Sorry, someone knows you. You be the first one. Start talking, and then in those the Rebbe starts with a whole.
But hold on,
before-
how does
yeah.
that work? How does that work? Explain that. Break that down for everybody, because how does that work? Walk us through speaking. You have a situation where someone's super annoying to you, and they're divisive, and they're really disruptive to your life, and they're creating animosity and all kinds of division and all kinds of situations. And now you're saying
All I'll do is I'll quote the Rebbe. Okay. That
So before you do that, I just want to say that a lot of our words tonight is about thinking positive and looking at a positive situation, which is true because for example, which means which I was talking about in Sicha about not judging, or to judge the kav sechus, which we may talk about or not, is really about a perspective. But there is a very big emphasis in this Sicha about Emor, about speaking, and that the things we say about the person, not just our perspective of them, but the things that we say about the person actually change, reframe, or create a new reality. And that's what you saw. That's what you were about to talk. I just wanted to just give that akdama that we're shifting from the talking about the perspective of the person.
Right. 100%. Beautiful. And I agree. The Emor is the main thing, is the language. So someone's annoying, and there's 99 things that are annoying, but talk about the one thing that's not annoying. And as when you speak about someone's, his positive character traits, a good working of them, the person you praise is going to affect them. Right? It's going to give him strength and help in changing. So, you want to imagine that guy wants to change. You know what I mean? We all want to change. And in other words, we don't keep getting ourselves, but they don't know how to, or whatever, So by simply, it's a ruchnistic thing. More than the story I said before, just giving someone an uplift. It's a ruchnistic thing, but Pasha speaking about their minus will give them the strength, the spiritual strength they need to be able to live that way.
I think there's just to take it back a step here, is that it's beyond like positive re-encouragement, because that's like classic 101 parenting, is positive reinforcement, of course, and using out their positive energies for the positive, and being able to channel that. But I think that when a person is in a situation of strife, it's about taking a pause for a second and asking yourself, what is the goal here? What do you want to achieve? Why are you sitting down to talk? What do you want to do? Are you a chacham? And just to paraphrase from the Haggadah, chacham mahu omer, right? What are you going to say? Where are you coming from? What are your objectives? Right? What are you trying to achieve? So asking ourselves that question is a very important pause in this relationship that you have, in this fractured relationship that you have, or the situation you have with whoever it may be. Is actually what am I doing? Being more purposeful and being more intentful in what you're going to say, because, and then once you take that pause, you say, well, obviously, everybody would agree that the ultimate goal is good for everybody. And even this person who has these negative behaviors, obviously, nobody wants to focus on that. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to be afflicted by that. Nobody wants to be the subject of that. So once you come with that perspective, so then what does talking about it do for you? What does talking about it do for them? I mean, if there's something that could be accomplished, obviously, then you need to, fine. Then that needs to be done. But then then even that is coming from a different perspective.
So I think that that just because we tried to keep a limited amount of time. I think that there is a very, very cool, if that's a fair word to use on a Sicha, it's a very part of the Sicha. That after we've established what Shmuli, what you're mostly focusing on tonight, which is the perspective of the person and him understanding, the person understanding where they're going and what they want to accomplish, and because of that, choosing the words that are going to get you to that goal. And of course, what Yisroel was saying, what the Rebbe said in the Sicha, that specifically to use words that praise the person, highlight their positive qualities, which as the Rebbe explains in the Sicha, just like when Hashem speaks, it brings things into being. Our words, beyond the fact that the person hears them and feels good about them, that the words actually have an effect on that person to bring his potential his potential strengths into reality. The Rebbe then goes in Sivav, and something that is like a paradigm shift, because it's up until here, we can work with that. You know what I'm saying? We understand. It says in the Ranat that Dibur is Gilui. So when you speak what you say, if you say Chas Shalom, you'll rip him like a fish, then he rips like a fish. If you say good things, it becomes good things. This is all something that's in our wheelhouse. Now the Rebbe says that's me going by Yaser. It's not a schus to say, oh, I understand. I have a perspective of the situation, and I know why he's doing what he's doing, and that's not a schus yet. A schus means when I'm able to say to find something positive about this person, and the Rebbe now says that when you see someone that's struggling or that's not living up to par or acting in an undesirable way, this means that this person has extra keiches, because Hashem, a person is struggling, Hashem always provides the keiches that a person needs, which means this person in your life that we started out with, an annoying person, you have to change your perspective. As much as we were talking perspective till now, where is he coming from? What's going on? Now your perspective is going to a brand new place. This guy, he's a top of the line guy. Today he might be annoying because nobody gave him the tools to actually bring out the best in him. But this person is actually an incredible guy with incredible keiches. More keiches than I have, if I'm a good guy, and more keiches than I ever imagined he has, and when I was just looking at him as a regular person. And when I said in the beginning, the lofty, this I think is a little bit, for some people, hard to do. To your kids, when they misbehave, to say, oh, they're incredible kids, not difficult. We know that our kids have, we know where they are, we try to find them, our kids have hidden keiches. But the person that's annoying in your life, that's divisive, or some of the other adjectives that you used about people earlier on, to be able to change your perspective and say, almost, if I could say this, to put on the Rebbe's glasses and see when the person came by dollars, when the Rebbe saw this person, even if they didn't see them physically, but Kolsha came, when they stood in front of the Rebbe, what did the Rebbe see in this person? What did the Rebbe see in this person? The Rebbe saw in this person that, I can't say what the Rebbe saw in this person, other than what the Rebbe says in the Sicha, that they have such powerful keiches that they can get rid of their gnus.
I'll just add to that, that sometimes a person is coming from a perspective that they want them to stop that behavior. That's where they're coming from. Why do they have to be so negative to me? How and you could even say such behavior needs to be called out, and they shouldn't be allowed to speak that way, and they shouldn't be allowed to behave that way. And it's all true. And the Rebbe says an interesting thing. The Rebbe says, if you want to be mevatel their gnus, I'm just speaking to more to the behema in us a little bit, right? So you're going lechatchila ariber. This is lechatchila ariber, but from a different angle on the ariber. You want to be mevatel their gnus because that's what's bothering you. You want to be mevatel their arrogance and their problem and everything that's bothering you about them, whatever. So you want to be mevatel. What's the method? How could you get through to them? Should I call them out? Should I embarrass them in public? Should I yell at them? Should I call them to a meeting for intervention? Should I? What should I do? What should I do? I'm at a loss. So the Rebbe says, that's the answer. That is the method. If you want to be mavatal their gnus, you want to get rid of that. All those other methodologies, all those other ways, which are sort of the natural inclination of how to do it, there's a higher way. And that's like the lechatchila riber way. That's the way that you to mevatel their gnus in order to, in other words, to deal with that issue. Go over the top. Go over the top. And when you're melamed zchus, when melamed zchus doesn't, it's not just, it sounds like a cliche, oh, they must have been have a, it's easy to, not from your perspective, you could say, oh, they had a bad upbringing, or they must have been abused as a child, or they must have, the trauma that they must have gone through. Fine, now that's fair too. But like Moshe was saying, go take it a higher level, take it to a spiritual level, and ask yourself, who made them? The Eibusher made them. Who gave them the package that they have? The Eibusher. The Eibusher wouldn't give them that package if it's not complemented with the ability to overcome that annoyance, which means that the most annoying person has to definitely have within them something supernatural, something extraordinary. So how do we, if we really want to make a change in them, then maybe we could reframe our perspective to see it that way and to communicate that way and communicate about them that way, which ultimately will changes the reality that we're in and changes the reality around us.
And that's really what I want to end off with. I mean, I don't have much to add, but just 2 weeks ago we learned this amazing Sicha in Tazria about how careful you have to be to say one negative thing about a Jew and the consequence of saying anything negative. And then I went to the greatest extreme to warn anybody ever find something negative in somebody else. And here the Rebbe goes and takes this one step more. And I know you mentioned the Chatchila Rebbe, just say what the Rebbe said inside, is there's Arunter, you can go on, the regular way is dealing with the reality in front of you, and that's the mata, you know what I mean? That's expected. Or the Ariba means I can live in a higher plane and put in another pair of glasses. Moshe said the Rebbe's pair of glasses. And when I see somebody else, I just see goodness, and on a simple level, the Rebbe Pasha wants us over here, Emor, just keep saying good things about Klal Yisrael. Just always look for opportunities anytime you have to just say good to Zachem, just to look out, even to the people who are whatever. Just you humble yourself, look at it, Ariba, look at it from another level. And listen, how have to keep learning these books. There's no other way. Otherwise, it gets very complex as we live in the mata reality. So that's my l'chaim, that we should be able to shift, through learning these sichos and to constantly look at people in the most beautiful, positive light as possible. L'chaim.
Yeah, I'll just end. I'll circle back to something Yisrael said in the very beginning. I think one of the uniquenesses of this Sicha is that Rebbe gives us a glimpse into his perspective of Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe allows us to see what Ahavas Yisrael really means. When Rebbe spoke to us about Ahavas Yisrael, we grew up, the three of us, we grew up in a divisive era, if you will. And imagine if to each and every person that we were kids then, so I'm not blaming us or anything like that, but we looked at each of those people and we saw their passion for the Rebbe's and Yanim. We saw, even if we disagree with them, or we did that then, today, Baruch Hashem, we don't have to disagree, or we could if we want to. But I'm saying, imagine we looked at the desire to grow and to connect to the Rebbe and to do what has to be done. And we saw, and if we saw them in the street, or we met them at a Fabrengen or whatever it is, or we ended up at the same booth with them or something, and we're able to we're all the Rebbe's Kinderlach, and we're all the Rebbe's foot soldiers, and we're all trying to do the same thing, and we're all heading in the same direction. And if we thought that way and we spoke that way, imagine how much first of all, how much happier our lives would be. Imagine how much nachas the Rebbe would have from us, and imagine how much closer it would bring the Rebbe to us. So l'chaim.
My conclusion is just to circle back to Dibur and what goes on around our tables, our Shabbos tables, what goes around our dinner tables, what are we talking about, after the day's over, whether it's with your friends or your spouse or at home, whether it's about the principles and the school policies, and remembering that speech is a reality, just like Hashem's speech created the world. The talk that we're talking is creating a reality, and we're guilty of that. So you're part of that creation. And just to leave with a tip, because this is not an easy task, as Moshe said before, it's a very lofty expectation, and I don't know that we've really dissected the Sicha to its fullest. We're far from it, let's just say, because it's a very, very lofty, it's a very, very tall order, let's just say. But I think that one of the things I could say is that when we're dealing with something like this, we shouldn't ask ourselves what's wrong with them, but we should ask ourselves what's great in them that's fighting to come out. We'll leave it at that.
Beautiful. Fine.
Beautiful.
See you next
Thank
week,
you,
boys.
guys. Okay.